Hi all. In this present lecture, we'll discuss about the fertilization in angiosperms. So in the earlier lectures, we have seen the pre-fertilization events where the development of male gametophyte, that is pollen grain, and the development of female gametophyte, that is embryo sac, were discussed. The pollen grain basically consists of two male gametes, that is in the three-celled stage, whereas the embryo sac will possess only one egg. There are other cells, but the egg cell is only one. Now, in the case of angiosperms, for the first time, you can see double fertilization. So this double fertilization is one characteristic feature of only the angiosperms. You don't find this kind of fertilization anywhere in the plant kingdom. So in the double fertilization, basically two fertilizations will occur simultaneously. One is the syngamy, the other one is triple fusion. Syngamy involves the fusion of one male gamete with egg present inside the embryo sac that develops into zygote, which in turn develop into embryo, which is diploid. And the triple fusion will occur between the male gamete and the secondary nucleus. The secondary nucleus is in turn produced from the two polar nuclei. So the secondary nucleus fused with male gamete and produce the primary endospermic nucleus, which is triploid. Therefore, the development of endosperm will occur from this and it will be triploid. So in the case of angiosperms, this endosperm will directly develop from the female gametophyte. That's why the endosperm in the gymnosperms will be haploid. But here in the angiosperms, the endosperm is actually triploid. Now coming to the various events during the fertilization process, first thing is the pollen which is present on the stigma has to germinate. So once you just start with the first event after the pollination, now let us just assume that the pollen grain is present on the stigma. So the first thing that has to take place here is germination. That is, the pollen has to germinate on the stigma. That's the first event is. Now the pollen tube has to pass through this style. The length of which vary, it depends on the species. Now it has to enter the ovule. So the growth of the pollen tube in the style is the next event is. So this is the second event is. The next event is, once the pollen tube enters into the ovary, now it has to enter into the ovule. So say this is the ovule and this is the micropyle. Now it has to enter into this. This is the next event is. That is direction towards the micropyle. So once it is directed towards the micropyle, now we'll enter into the embryo sac through the synergids. That's the fourth event is. So once the pollen tube enter into the embryo sac, the pollen tube will be ruptured and the male gametes will be discharged. That's the next event is. And then syngamy and triple fusion will occur. So these are all the various events that takes place during the fertilization. So when you just start with the first event, that is pollen on the stigma, the pollen grains which are present on the stigma can be of compatible or incompatible type. So there is always possibility for the pollen grains from the other species also to reach the stigma. So when you just look into this, here the red and yellow one which you just see, both are incompatible pollens. So in the first case, that is the red color one which when you just see the pollen from another species, so it is incompatible one. Sometimes when there is self incompatibility, there the pollen from the same plant also can be incompatible. So whichever it is incompatible pollen which will not be allowed to germinate. And this third one is compatible pollen. So if there is no self incompatibility, the pollen grain from the same plant or the pollen grain from the other plant of the same species is compatible pollen will be. Whenever there is self incompatibility, then this compatible pollen will be always from the other member of the same species. So depending on the condition, we have compatible or incompatible pollen. So the compatible pollen is germinating, which is passing through the style. now will enter into the ovary, now will enter into the ovule through this micropyle, now finally enter into the embryo sac where the fertilization will occur. So here the male gamete which is present inside the pollen grain can reach the stigma through the pollination process. But once it reaches this stigma, now the male gametes present on the stigma have to reach the embryo sac. This will be through the pollen tube. As these male gametes are non-motile, they are actually non-flagellated, unlike algae, Bryophyta and Pteridophyta. Here, the movement of male gametes on this carpel, on this female reproductive system will be through the pollen tube. That's why this kind of fertilization is called siphonogamy, where siphono is tube, gamy is the fusion is. So siphonogamy is the formation of pollen tube through which the male gametes will be transported to the embryo sac. So this can be seen only in the spermatophytes, that is the seeded plants, or the gymnosperms and angiosperms. So this pollen germination is actually facilitated by stigmatic fluid in the case of wet stigma, or pellicle in the case of dry stigma. So we have two different types of stigmas. One is wet stigma, the other one is dry stigma. They'll also decide the incompatibility or compatibility also. So whether the pollen is compatible to germinate or not is also decided by this stigmas only. So there is one continuous dialogue between the pollen grain and the stigma, which will decide the compatibility, and finally the germination will start. Now coming to the first event that takes place on the stigma will be hydration. So the pollen grain will attain the water and there will be hydration of the pollen on the stigma. Next, the growth of this pollen tube will be restricted to only the tip. So when you just look into the complete tip, the germination, the growth will be only at the tip. So the growth is restricted to the tip only. In this tip, you can find first the tubular, the vegetative nucleus, tube nucleus, and it is followed by the two male nuclei. So this is where the growth will be. Now when this kind of growth is taking place, the remaining pollen tube is actually occupied by the vacuole. This is completely occupied by the vacuole. So the growth is restricted to the tip. Now there are three different types of styles basically. First one is the hollow style or open style. So this is where you can see the style. This is the style is actually hollow. This is completely the empty chamber. Now the lining of this hollow tube is filled with the transmitting tissue, or it's a kind of glandular tissue. So this is the transmitting tissue, or the glandular tissue will be, which will be involved in the secretion. So this will secrete certain fluids into this hollow region. So now from here to here, when you just see the difference, this is filled with some secretions. So this is completely the secretions. Now the secretions composition, which when you just look into, that consists of some carbohydrates, lipids, and there will be few enzymes like esterase and even phosphatases. And there are compatibility proteins also. So the compatibility of the pollen grain is also determined by these secretions. So this is how the hollow style will be. So this hollow style is most common in the case of monocots. Whereas in the case of dicots, the style is solid one. That is, the style is completely filled with the transmitting tissue. The tissue is same. Whatever the tissue is present here, the same tissue is present here. But here it is completely filled with the transmitting tissue or the glandular tissue. Again, there will be secretions from this. The secretions composition also will be similar only. The difference is only it is solid, whereas this one is hollow one. This you can see in the case of dicots. And there are some plants where you can find the intermediate type, that is the semi-solid style or half-closed style. So it is the intermediate type is. So whatever the kind of style is, basically the style consists of the glandular tissue, intermittent transmitting tissue, which will secrete, which will add various secretions that consist of these secretions, various components. Now, once the pollen tube crossed this style, now it entered into the ovary. Now it has to enter into the ovule. Now entry of pollen tube into the ovule can occur in three different ways. So there are three different types of pollen tube entry into the ovule. One is the pollen tube, say this is completely the ovaries. This is completely the ovaries. The pollen tube directly enter into the micropyle. So through this micropyle only it will enter into the ovule. This is called porogamy because it is taking place through the pore, that is micropyle. Whereas in the case of chalazogamy, the pollen tube will enter into the ovule through the chalaza region. This is chalaza. Through this, it will enter into the ovule. See, I am talking about only the entry of pollen tube into ovule only, not into embryo sac. Next, sometimes the pollen tube can enter through the integuments like this, like this. It is called mesogamy. So among these three, the porogamy is the most common type. So in most of the species, the pollen tube will enter into the ovule through the micropyle. That's why you can find porogamy. So this chalazogamy you can find, for example, in casuarina plant or maybe in the walnut plant. And this mesogamy can be found in the cucurbita plants. And there is another kind of like a pollen tube entry also, which is actually called acrogamy. Which is called acrogamy. So in acrogamy, the embryo sac actually comes out of it. So this is the ovulus and this is where the embryo sac is. So here the embryo sac will come out of it, come out of the ovule for receiving the pollen tube. This is actually the acrogamy. This you can see in the case of Utricularia plant. So apart from this porogamy, you can just consider this chalazogamy, mesogamy, acrogamy, all these three together as apogamy. Sorry, aporogamy. Aporogamy. Because A is without porogamy. So if not porogamy, which is the most common type, all these three together can be considered as aporogamy. So that's how the pollen tube entry into the ovule will be. Next, coming to the entry of this pollen tube into the embryo sac. See, irrespective of the kind of entry into the ovule, always the pollen tube will enter into the embryo sac through the micropylar end only. That is, so in the case of porogamy, we have seen that the pollen tube directly entering into the ovule through micropyle only. But here it is, in the case of chalazogamy, it is entering through the chalaza. But in this case also, the pollen tube will enter into the embryo sac through this micropylar end only, not from this chalazal end of the embryo sac. The same way, in the case of mesogamy, the pollen tube is actually entering into the ovule through the integuments, but it will enter into the embryo sac only through micropyle. So only through this region only. So irrespective of the kind of entry into the ovule, the pollen tube will always enter into the embryo sac through micropylar end only. So that's the thing is, so at the micropylar end only it will enter into the embryo sac. And it will enter through one of the synergies. So totally there are two synergies. So once this pollen tube enter into the embryo sac, one of the synergies will be broken down. Through this synergy only the entry of the pollen tube will. And the pollen tube will be guided towards this embryo sac by the filiform apparatus, which is present in the synergids. So this is the filiform apparatus. It's the part of synergid cells. Or it can also be guided by one obturator, which is actually the balloon-like outgrowth from either the funiculus or the placenta, which will also provide the mechanical and chemical guidance to the pollen tube. So it can be through the filiform apparatus and or through the obturator. Once reaching this embryo sac, at the end of this pollen tube, there will be a formation of pore. So through this, the contents of this pollen tube will be released. So this is how the entry of pollen tube into the ovule and finally into the embryo sac. Then coming to the process of fertilization, the double fertilization was actually first observed by N.G. Navashin in Lilium and Fritillaria. Later it was supported by Grignard. So in the double fertilization process, as we have seen, there will be two fertilizations. In that, one male gamete is fused with the egg, which will develop into zygote. The zygote will develop into the diploid embryo. This is the embryo. The other male gamete will be fused with the secondary nucleus, which will develop into triploid endosperm, which is called triple fusion. So the first one is syngamy. It is actually the true fertilization is, and then triple fusion, or it is also called vegetative fusion. So it is called triple fusion because if you just take the fusion of this, three nuclei will be involved in the fusion, two polar nuclei and one male gamete. So secondary nucleus is directly involved, but the secondary nucleus itself is directly produced from two different nuclei. So total number of nuclei involved in the fusion will be 3. That's why the name triple fusion, or it is also called vegetative fertilization. So this vegetative fertilization will lead to endosperm formation, that is triploid endosperm. And coming to various post-fertilization events once the fertilization is completed. So these are all the various structures before fertilization, and these are all the structures after fertilization. So as you know, sepals, petals, stamens, style, stigma, all these will be fall off. That is, they will just wither and fall off. There will be shriveling of all these parts, and finally they will just fall off. Ovary will develop into fruit. That is, the ovary wall will develop into the pericarp or fruit wall. The ovule will develop into seed, and the ovule, whatever that protective coverings of ovule are there, they will be developed into seed coats that you can see here. The outer integument of the ovule will develop into the testa of seed, that is the outer coat of seed, whereas the inner integument will develop into tegmen. This is inner coat of the seed. Egg will develop into zygote, and which in turn develop into embryo, as you know. The funicle will develop into the stalk of the seed. As the ovule is developing into seed, the ovule's stalk is funicle, which will develop into the stalk of the seed. Micropyle will be the micropyle of the seed. Seed also will have some small opening, that is micropyle, through which the gaseous exchange will be. Nucellus usually will be utilized during the development of embryo sac. If there is some remnant of this nucellus inside the seed, then it is called perisperm. Synergids will degenerate. Secondary nucleus, as we know already, it will be involved in the triple fusion and will develop into endosperm. Antipodals also will degenerate. So these are all the post-fertilization structures in the angiospermic plant. So the important events among these post-fertilization events are: one is the endosperm development, embryo development, formation of seed, and the formation of fruit. So the first one, that is the embryo development, when you just look into, see, always the development of endosperm will be preceded. That is, once some amount of endosperm is produced, then only the development of embryo will be. So the embryo, whether it is in monocot or dicot, it will develop only after some amount of endosperm is produced. This is to ensure the nutrition to the embryo. So embryo will attain the nutrition from the endosperm, right? So to provide the nutrition for that, there will be always first endosperm formation followed by embryo formation. Next, it will always develop towards the micropylar end. As the egg is present towards that, zygote is produced there. Therefore, the development of embryo will be towards the micropylar end only. So when you just start with the zygote, this is how the zygote is. So initially, the zygote will undergo one transverse division to produce two cells. One is terminal cell and one is the basal cell. This is the micropylar end and this is the chalazal end. So like this, the division will be. This zygote sometimes may undergo resting. So the shortest period, for example, you can find in the graminae, in the grasses, where the resting period will be about 4 to 10 hours. That is, zygote once produced will not immediately undergo this division. Instead, it will undergo some resting period. So the shortest period you can find in the grasses, that is 4 to 10 hours. Whereas in the case of Colchicum autumnale, the plant from which we will obtain colchicine, right? There you can find the resting period of 4 to 5 months. So zygote will undergo resting, the duration of which varies. So in different species, the resting period varies. So once the resting is over, now then only it will undergo this division. So it will produce the terminal cell and the basal cell. So this whatever the development that we'll see in detail, this is actually first observed in the Capsula bursa pastoris, or the shepherd purse. It's one plant where we have studied this. It belongs to the crucifer. That's why this whatever the development we are discussing here, it is called crucifer development. It is crucifer development, or it's also called onagrad development. ONAGRAD. So this development is crucifer development or onagrad development. That whatever we are going to discuss now is that. So this unequal division, this first transverse unequal division is leading to the formation of one terminal cell and one basal cell. Now this basal cell will further undergo various number of transverse divisions to produce one filamentous suspensor like this. So this is the filamentous suspensor. So two-celled embryo produced four-celled embryo. Now comes one stage called globular embryo, where you can see one long suspensor. So this suspensor is actually produced from the basal cell. In this suspensor, the cell towards the micropyle, this one, which is actually remaining as a large cell, it is called haustorial cell or vesicular cell. So the cell towards the micropyle, which is large, is called the haustorial cell or vesicular cell. And the cell of the suspensor towards the other end, that is chalaza, this is called hypophysis. This is the one which actually develops into the radicle. So this is the one that forms the radicle. Now this terminal cell will develop into the embryonal mass. So the development of initially the shape of this thing will be globular. That's why it is called the globular embryo. Later it will turn into one heart shape. That's why it is called the heart-shaped embryo. And then now comes the mature embryo. So the mature embryo consists of the cotyledons, the hypophysis, radicle, and here there will be plumule, and there will be root cap, and suspensor also will remain. So to understand the different names present in the embryo, we'll just look into one small diagrammatic representation of one embryo, that is dicot embryo. Here, this middle one, this is the embryonal axis. So this orange colored one which I have shown here is the embryonal axis. This is the embryonal axis to which two cotyledons are attached. This is one cotyledon, this is the other cotyledon. The level at which these cotyledons are attached is this. Now the part which is present above this cotyledon level is called epicotyle. Epi is above. So the embryonal axis above this cotyledon level is epicotyle, and the level below this is hypocotyle, that is below. So with respect to the cotyledons level, we are giving these names to the embryonal axis. In the embryonal axis, the part above this cotyledon level is called epicotyle. The part which is below this is called hypocotyle. The terminal part of epicotyle, that is this part, is the plumulus, whereas the terminal part of the hypocotyle is called the radicle. So here the two cotyledons you can see here, and this is where the plumule will be, and this is where the radicle is. So this is how the dicot embryo will be. So when it comes to the monocot embryo, The development of monocot embryo will be same as the dicot embryo. That is, the initial stages you don't find any difference between the development of monocot and dicot embryos. So in monocots also the initial stages of development will be same as the dicot. The only thing is you can find the difference once the development is completed. So here this is how the mature monocot embryo will be. So as you know, the monocot embryo consists of only one cotyledon and it is called scutellum. So it is actually a shield shaped cotyledon you can find here. So this scutellum represents the cotyledon. The other cotyledon is actually this epiblast. So it is not much developed. And here other important differences are the plumule is actually protected by one protective sheath called coleoptile, whereas the radicle is protected by coleorhiza. So these are the protective sheaths on plumule and radicle. So this is how the development of embryo in the dicot and monocots will be. So in the next lecture we'll discuss about the other development, that is endosperm development, different types of endosperms and all, and we'll look into the other post-fertilization events. So thank you very much.